Hello, I'm Felicity Cohen. I'm so excited to introduce you to my Wellness Warriors podcast. For over 20 years, I've been a passionate advocate for helping thousands of Australians find solutions to treating obesity and health-related complications through surgical intervention and holistic managed care. My podcast is dedicated to all the people, past, present and future, who have helped shape my journey and continue to inspire me to work consistently to achieve a healthier Australia in both adults and future generations. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to my Wellness Warriors podcast. Today it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Alan River. Alan is so many things. He's a leader and he leads with purpose and passion and has had a career that spanned a multitude of so many different areas of contributing in work as a CEO in certain corporate areas to now guiding people through purpose, presence, mindfulness. You've had a really colourful career, Alan.
Yeah, it's been fun so far. It's I feel so grateful for life's journey, and it's kind of interesting how really underneath all the different aspects of, I guess, what we call a career has been the practices that I was lucky enough to learn early on in life, which you mentioned, help us become more present as people. So, and I feel so kind of blessed that much of my work now is how I live. It is about just helping people become more connected.
I'd like to talk a lot about presence and purpose because they're two words that we do hear so much more, but I think they're words that we can really actually understand a lot more about. But before we go into what is presence, what is purpose, and how do we get to achieve all of these things in our lives, you spent a lot of your life guiding in the Himalayas. That must have been a fascinating time of your life.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and it's a kind of a place that I still have, still feels like home. So obviously prior to COVID and lockdown, I would go back almost every year as well. But it's when I was in my early 20s, I made a choice to sort of leave London and an early career and follow my intuition. And I went out and I lived on the Indian side of the Himalayas for a couple of years, and made amazing friends with people up in the mountains, and then just spent a lot of time in remote community and deep in nature. And I think that I didn't know at the time because I was just following my intuition, but it kind of became one of the greatest gifts that I gave myself, because in that environment, it almost naturally happens that you begin to sort of strip off the layers that I had put on throughout my life, throughout my teenage years, different identities. You see them for what they are, and you just recognize that maybe they don't suit you best moving forwards. And so, yeah, it was full of fun, and at the same time, it just taught me so much.
So it's obviously a part of the world that you gravitated to, not just that dream. And I feel like that's often a bit of a boy dream, to go and trek the Himalayas. I know my own brother did that before he got married. He decided to just take off and do that one last trek through the Himalayas. And it's funny how you hear, when people have that dream, it's something that they need to include in their whole big, agenda of travel. But for you, it obviously holds a very special place, and to have remained there and have become a guide through the Himalayas, what did that look like, and how much time did you actually end up spending there?
So, it kind of all started for me, I think, actually, when I was very little, and I was lucky enough to spend time in Beijing, in China, when it was just after the end of the Cultural Revolution. And there was almost no other foreigners that were there. It was through my grandfather that was working there, and we didn't just stay in Beijing. We got to travel around, and we got to, I guess, my eyes were just opened. And as a young kid, I was so curious and inquisitive about this culture that had been closed for so long. And then from there, I was lucky enough, again, a little bit later, to find myself in places like the far west of China, up in the Xinjiang province, and then I traveled from there through the desert and onto the Tibetan plateau, and I was kind of adopted, if that's the right word, by some friendly nomads. I just traveled with them. We had no language, other than the universal language of a smile. But yeah, they took me with them and dropped me off at a monastery. And again, I got to kind of just drop into that world, and it was a really incredible experience for me, because I got to see people who had lost so much, because of course their country had been taken away from them. Many of them had lost family and friends, and their land and so much. And I'd really, in comparison, I had such an easy upbringing, and yet they seemed so peaceful. And it fascinated me. And thankfully, one of the older monks there had a really good level of English, much better than my Tibetan. Obviously, there was kind of one word or two words, hello and stuff. And yeah, and so we got to chat, and we would like walk each day and sit and meditate, and he guided me to the inner world, is what it's kind of known as. And that was just that when we create stillness and peace through being present internally, then no matter what's going on in the outside world, and of course right now in COVID, we're at a point where in the last 18 months, 2 years, the outside world has been in greater kind of uncertainty and change and potentially turmoil, if you use that word, than it's maybe been in most of our lifetimes. And so this kind of lesson that I was kind of guided into around creating this calm centeredness within, just was so kind of enriching that it stayed with me. And when I left that trip eventually, it was like a piece of me obviously had been reborn almost in that region. And so I was always drawn back. So then I went to answer the question around kind of what I was doing. I went back out a few years later, as I mentioned, and I stayed there for kind of close to 2 years, and then that's when, at the end of that was when 9/11 happened. So as a guide and someone helping some great friends who have got tourism-based companies within India, Nepal, and Tibet, it was super challenging because no one was traveling to that region, or very, very few people. And so the opportunity came to then actually go out to Belize in Central America, and I had another incredible experience, kind of living on this island 14 miles by boat to the nearest human being, and helped with a great friend lead a team of local people developing and building an eco resort for 2 years, which we then launched and was subsequently sold. But I was always, for me, and I loved, it was beautiful, and I returned to Belize as well and see great friends and stuff. And but yeah, the Himalayas sort of has, if it's the right phrase, it holds a piece of my soul or my spirit. So I'm always drawn back. And yeah, just prior to lockdown, I was back in this incredible part of what is Nepal. It's an old independent kingdom called Mustang, which is where you get almost a taste for some of the most traditional elements of Tibetan Buddhism as well. It's a high altitude desert, and it's just beautiful.
So is this where your whole concept and learning or self-learning around presence really became apparent, understanding that inner stillness is what really defines presence?
Yeah, it was definitely a real catalyst for me. And then since then, life, which is a great teacher for us when we allow it to be. And also just being really fortunate to spend time with and connect with lots of different people in different places. So in Belize, there were some incredible indigenous people and elders, and the same when I was in Mexico, who I've learned so much from time in Kenya with the Maasai, and then most recently over here in this beautiful country that I'm now lucky enough to call home with First Nations culture, which I think it holds so much for us that could help on so many levels. But if we talk about kind of mental well-being, connection, and community, because obviously mental health and loneliness are two of the major things that have been identified as challenges for us in our world. I guess the experience that I've had and the things that I've been lucky enough, and I've only walked a very few small steps with them, but to learn from Indigenous culture here, really are like I would encourage anyone to open their eyes and just dip into it, because all of these things, all of these cultures all come down to a couple of fundamentals, and one of them is the state of presence, because when we're present, we are in our most deeply connected state, which on an environmental level means that we are connected with Mother Earth or the planet or the environment. And so therefore our relationship is not about taking from, but becoming one of a cycle. In relationships with others, when we are present, we're in our most deeply connected state, where we listen better, we have more empathy, we're there to love and support, whether that's at a workplace, which we might use different expressions from love, but to collaborate and cohesion and connect with people, and also with the people that we love most. And then also for presence for ourselves helps unlock this clarity, where we're not in this distracted, busy mindset the whole time, and we can access clarity that helps us build a more fulfilling and enriched life. So yeah, the Himalayas that early stage was a big catalyst for me, and then it's been so lovely to have continued just to stay open and learn. There's an incredible concept in Buddhism which is called the beginner's mindset, and that's always just about being inquisitive and staying open and not allowing ego to get in the way of thinking you know it all. So
were you able to take a lot of those learnings from that period of time that you spent in the Himalayas into your role? You've had multiple roles as a CEO in some award-winning, companies within Australia. How did that help you actually perform at your highest potential performance level?
Yeah, it's definitely for me. It's kind of been critical to my journey, because when we're present, let's just start at the kind of the usual place for business, which is our ability to create results, whether that's money or impact or a mix of the two. So when we're present, we are in our most potent state at work, because our mind is not split, it's not somewhere else. So you're able to bring all of your energy, all of your focus, all of your experience, and all of your understanding to this particular moment. So it might be the task, creating a solution or co-creating a solution. It might be a conversation. It might be a meeting. It might be a presentation. So, absolutely for me, continuing to practice being present in a particularly unpresent world sometimes, which is the business world, really helped in performance. It really helped me in just trying to, again, when sometimes the tide feels it's going the other way, to help try and support the amazing teams and people that were working in each organization, to build cultures that were more connected, more cohesive, more collaborative, and just cared for each other. Because often when you've got great people and you help them look after themselves, then most of the results follow.
Did you actually, sorry. Did you enjoy the time that you spent in the corporate world as a CEO? It sounds like it's a complete antithesis to who I see as Alan River in that kind of corporate environment.
Yeah, that's a great question. I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for my time. And it's helped me learn that language, learn the language of the corporate world, of this, short-term shareholder model, these sorts of things, so that I can now go in and speak that language, but from a different place. So I'm incredibly grateful for it. I'm not sure I'd say that I got a lot of deep joy out of it. I met some beautiful people. Like there's so many benefits to it, but there's definitely places I enjoy more.
What have been some of the most significant challenges around the shift that you've had to kind of transform your working life throughout the last 12 months into this online space? What are some of the changes that you've noticed, and how have you managed that whole shift?
That's another great question. It's a big one. So I guess the changes I've observed and then how I've managed myself potentially. Of course, one of the big things is with the series of lockdowns, and every state has had it differently, but with every lockdown, the connection has dropped out for people in terms of our ability to be able to physically connect, which is incredibly important, as we all know, for humans. And so that's brought with it challenges on an individual level from a mental health perspective, challenges at an organizational level around how you keep kind of motivating and supporting your teams to help move the organization forwards. So that's definitely been one big thing that I've observed. The other thing that I think is really important is that this is not the result of COVID, but COVID has kind of been helped to be a magnifying glass for this. Is that in the West, we're because we're kind of a rational society in terms of our model and our culture, we're reductionists. So we try and simplify and reduce everything, which has some benefit in some areas, but like everything, life is best when it's balanced. So you're able to hold complexity and simplicity at the same time. And one of the things that I've definitely seen is that every individual is going through their own experience every day. And it's really important within, for example, the business world, that can be acknowledged and systems can start to evolve to support that. Now, it's very hard if you've got an organization that's, 100 people or 1,000 or 10,000 people to try and get down to the micro level of individuals. But there are ways of getting better at supporting. And life is a journey. It's not trying to find the ultimate solution. It's about walking the journey every time. So I think recognizing that everybody is going through shifts and changes every day, which is the rhythm of life, but COVID has sort of magnified that. And the loss of connection, I think we could talk about this for hours, but they're definitely two big things. And then so for me, how I've personally helped myself and my sort of beautiful family and anyone else that I'm able to is to simply prioritize myself and the practices that help me just stay in the most positive state, which is presence. I just call them presence practices, but because it's very easy to, when things are getting challenging and our mind is firing up and we're getting negative thoughts, to drop into negative habits. And so it takes commitment and persistence, and sometimes it's great to have a support network around you, like almost accountability pals or whatever you want to call it. But the fundamental thing for me has been not just keeping those in, but dialing them up and finding ways as the world changes to dial them up. So I spend a lot of time on Zoom, and you can be exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, Zoom fatigue is a thing that's been is something that's kind of come out of COVID. And so these things aren't complex. That's what's beautiful about them. They're really, really simple. So all I do in between each Zoom is I close down. I don't take any distractions. I don't take my phone, and I don't have a smartwatch. If I had it, I'd take it off. And I just go outside. And if I can take 5 or 10 minutes, I will. If I can take 2 minutes, I'll do that. And I just breathe, bring myself back, and I just do a very, very simple, slow, mindful walk. And that in between each Zoom enables me, like the difference at the end of the day, when I wasn't doing it and when I did do it, when I really broke these practices down to bite-sized chunks, was night and day.
I think you really give new meaning to the whole understanding of the word presence. So rather than all of a sudden, for me, my personal understanding and interpretation of this word being a little bit maybe overused and rather to a certain degree sometimes a little bit redundant. I feel like you've given a whole new depth. And with that, throughout this whole period, and my understanding is that COVID being a catalyst, you've developed a whole new program around presence called the 10 Days of Presence. Can you walk me through what the program actually looks like and what are the goals and intentions and what can people expect to actually achieve once they've engaged in the 10 Days of Presence, Alan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it really was I guess seeing the change that was happening in lockdowns. I really wanted to take what I'd been doing in a face-to-face level and see if I could help people through this period. And it's been incredible. It's been so lovely to see the uptake and hear all the feedback from people. The simple, I guess, goal or the simple dream is to help people move from a state of kind of overthinking, of being trapped and caught by our thoughts, and this story of busyness and always being on and constantly distracted by technology and other things. So to help people move from these negative states or these less than optimal states and become more present. And as I mentioned before, why? Because when we're present, we're in our most potent state for work. We're in our most deeply connected state in our relationships. And it enables us to find clarity that helps us create and build an enriching and fulfilling life. So that's really at the heart of it. And then the program itself, over 10 days, just takes people through the simple process of what is presence, so that we have understanding. Because when we have understanding, we can then start to build that into action in our lives. And so the action each day, there's a very, very simple presence practice. And the reason that they flow across the 10 days is twofold. One is because building presence is a little bit like, and I know you know this world so well, is by building a healthier life, becoming more fit, is we all have things that work for us. And we also have things that work for us in different life stages as well, and they change. So if I was trying to get fit, or if someone's trying to get fit, then someone might like running and someone else might like swimming and someone else might like cycling or yoga. And the thing is finding what works best for you, because when we find what works best for us, it's so much easier to keep in our lives. Otherwise we can have the best intention but never do it. So each day is a different presence practice that I've again focused on making it as simple and as easy to apply into our lives. So it takes 2 to 3 minutes each day. And I haven't met anybody in my journey yet, from high-performing CEOs to athletes and all sorts of people, who can't argue that a few minutes each day to get to your most optimum state is not a good investment. So that like fitness, you can find the ones that work best for you. You can apply them into your life in almost no time. Of course, the longer you do it, the greater the benefits, but in almost no time, and they will get better, or you will feel better. And so that's the practices each day. And then also supporting those is to help deepen people's ability to reflect and as a result grow self-awareness. Because then we can, when we're more aware of our stuff, old perceptions, behaviors, and habits, when we're aware of them, they're no longer invisible to us, so we can start to work on them, and we can start to shift and move from perhaps perceptions and behaviors and habits that we developed in the past that no longer suit us best anymore. So really that's it, is that it's a series of very simple but powerful transformative practices with a reflection or a short video that helps you deepen awareness. And over 10 days, the reason for 10 days is purely because just like getting fit, if I hadn't exercised for 3 years and I'd been sitting on the couch and I got up and went for a run, I wouldn't be fit the next day. And so the 10 days helps just start to establish a small part of a habit and a behavior.
And I guess over 10 days, people are already starting to experience some form of change that they can feel, that they can sense, that they can articulate. So it's almost like an opportunity to create that impetus for change that they can then continue.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Because when we start to experience the benefits, then of course it's easier to continue as well. And what's also been lovely is that people have started doing it in teams, like friends, or they've started or had companies buy it for their employees and embed that into kind of growing a greater kind of supporting wellness culture around the organization, so that they can talk about it and share, because the reflections obviously help bring stuff up as well. So yeah, it's been so lovely that absolutely when we start to feel the benefits, we tend to continue with things, or there's a better chance. And then also it's been so lovely that people have started to connect with people they love or work with and share the experience themselves, which helps keep us on the track, doesn't it?
I love that, and I actually love the terminology around wellness culture. Building a wellness culture is so fabulously valuable. So the idea of kind of incorporating this into a workspace and driving that positive outcome, I just think is spectacular. So congratulations on designing this new program. I'm actually excited to take a look at it myself. So thank you for the explanation. The other, I guess, significant word terminology, or something that you actually aspire to and empower others to achieve, is their sense of purpose. And it is also another word that we hear a lot more about. What do you think is the most significant thing about how do we drive our own purpose every day?
Yeah, that's another big topic, but a fun one. So my work is kind of split between organizational purpose. So that's not-for-profits and NGOs and social enterprises through to corporates, and then personal or team-based purpose as well. But so what tends to happen is that if I touch on the organizational purpose first, and the purpose is simply the reason why they exist. It's not to make money. It's actually deeper than that. It's not at the transactional level. It's not the operational level. It's like we exist too, and that when you build a shared purpose within an organization, it's the level of commitment and motivation and connection significantly increases. So all the research shows that employee engagement grows, that you attract talent, and also what's been beautiful to see, certainly, and I've been working in this space for over 10 years, is that certainly, and it's grown, but certainly in the last 5 years, the public, so consumers, are gravitating towards and looking for what's called purpose-orientated businesses. So businesses that they share values with, and that most likely are going to have some kind of positive impact on community, society, environment. So it's a beautiful just to be a part of that and see that grow. And then at a personal level, yeah, it's an incredible kind of process to witness, and also for me to continue to explore and develop in myself. And the process of purpose, or finding our purpose, is, if you were to ask someone, usually what it is they've developed an idea based around an aspect of their identity. And that's great. It can be incredibly motivating for people. But also what you can do is you can help them start to become more present, step out of your thoughts, so you can observe your thoughts that are supporting or born from the identity and the need state. And you can start to find deeper purpose in life. So I'll work with people whose purpose may be defined by the work they do. And it's not that it's that that's a part of it. And so actually, when you are able to sit with people and help them look deeper and deeper into themselves, they find a more rounded purpose that isn't just based on external validation, which usually is what comes from the work piece. To be successful, to have great impact in the world, to be X or Y or Z. And there's nothing, again, those can be incredibly positive, but quite often what happens there is that if we have a purpose that is purely based on external validation, then if it's not met, the external validation in terms of then it can cause a lot of challenges mentally and emotionally, etc. And so finding a purpose which is ultimately around how we are, how we choose to be in each moment, and then we find the expression for that, again helps people on their well-being journey, but also just it enriches life. It's an incredible thing to see when people incorporate an external purpose, which is like creating impact in the world, with their internal purpose, which again is so personal that it's sort of hard to give particular examples of that. I mean, I for me, my purpose is simply this, is right here, right now. My purpose is to be with you and be in the magic of this moment and to experience it. And for me, from this and from being in the moment as much as I possibly can, everything else seems to happen. There's this kind of magic thing that happens in life where the more I drop into being present, the more life reciprocates and synchronicities happen and all these other things, doors open, rather than going searching for them the whole time. So yeah, so it's that's really kind of the work I do around purpose, is organizational and then individual, which is helping marry the external with an internal purpose.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. That was a fabulous explanation. One of your other projects, I guess, passion project, is a fabulous book that you have written, and it is called, is it The Jar of Dreams?
The Jar of Dreams, yeah.
I actually need one of those because it sounds so beautiful, and what a fabulous title for a book. It's so enticing. Tell me all about The Jar of Dreams. I believe it was the idea behind the novel came from something that happened to you when you were out there somewhere in the Himalayas. So I'd love to hear about the book.
Yeah, it's a fun, beautiful part of life. So The Jar of Dreams, it came to me in a dream when I was halfway up a mountain in the Himalayas, and I woke up. I was just next to a glacier, and everything was, I don't know if you've ever been near glaciers, but everything was alive, cracking and moving. And anyway, I woke up, found my head torch and a piece of paper and scribbled down the dream. I wasn't a writer. I didn't have any idea that it was going to be a book. It was a fascinating dream. I didn't want to forget it. It was so so alive for me. Anyway, so that happened, and then I went through this incredible experience where that dream started to kind of almost come alive around me. So I'd meet people, certainly when I was out, in that region, and they would suddenly become a character in this story. So what would happen is, as soon as I'd finished meeting them, I'd sit and scribble again. And so it was a really organic process. And then I'd go to a place, and it's almost like I would step through a doorway or a portal, and I'd be seeing that place as if I was in this story as well. So again, I just kind of keep scribbling, and this kind of organic thing happened for a while, and I just love the experience of it. And that's really been throughout, has been, I've never had any expectations for the Jar of Dreams. And again, it was kind of an intuitive thing, like my first trip to the Himalayas, not my first trip, but that trip to the Himalayas. And what has turned out is that I've been writing now solidly for 7 years, every day. And when I was running companies, it was at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it brings me such joy. I haven't had one bad moment. I can honestly say that with it. It's so it was born in a dream in the Himalayas. It kind of organically wrote itself just by observation and by, I guess, being inquisitive and just being open. And then there was a period of a year actually where I would wake up, let's just say 4:30 in the morning, early in the morning before my alarm, and the only way I can describe it is that the book was writing itself through me. So I'd get up and it would literally just, I'd sit and I'd write, type on the computer or scribble, and sometimes I actually had to go back and reread what I'd written because I didn't know. I was like, oh, wow. Like, because I was kind of in, I don't know, I was in this kind of in-between space. And I've subsequently spoken to a lot of people who have become great friends who are incredible authors and artists and stuff. And of course, can be quite a common experience of this kind of, some people call it flow, some people call it channeling, whatever it might be. But it was magical. I almost had no choice, but I certainly wouldn't have not chosen it because it was great. So that then led to, let's just say 70-odd thousand words being written, fairly amateur and a bit of a jumble. But then I thought I would kind of put it out in the world. You never know. And I shared it with two friends, one who had been in publishing and one who was a film director. So both knew story and stuff. And long story short, it's gathered momentum, and I continue a little bit like the beginner's mindset that I mentioned earlier, like always being open to learning. I've just loved learning the craft of writing. And people have been so generous. I think it's one of these things that when you follow a passion, isn't it incredible how people really support you along the way, and they really want to help you. People you perhaps have never met. Because I think it's infectious, isn't it?
100%. So where are you up to in the process now? You've been writing it for 7 years. At what stage is the book at right now?
So I'm lucky enough. I've got this lovely agent who lives over in pre-COVID between Paris and New York. And there's some incredible publishers who we're in mid-conversation with, basically. But I'm actually, just this morning, I went back in, I was rewriting another part of it. And again, the gift of being able just to, and the publishing industry has blown me away. Obviously, through my work, I've been in lots of different industries. And one of the things I found is how generous people are. I think people they get into publishing because they're passionate about writing or books. And even when I've got thanks but no thanks because it's not quite right for our list or our strategy or whatever else it is, it's always come with an incredible amount of insight. So it's not like the copy paste rejection email. It's been that someone's taken time. I remember the first one, which was someone who was involved with Harry Potter in England, and I sent her the first draft that really. I'm very happy I did it, but you can also be a little bit embarrassed that you sent something that was kind of such a hodgepodge of words. But she had been involved with J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, and she sent me this 3-page email when I printed it off that was just dripping in insight, because she had been like people who have been in this industry for so long, just passing on their wisdom. So it's currently in what's probably called publishing mode. And is out there, and I'm loving that too. It's kind of like this fun adventure.
It's, I think, a really valuable skill set to have, but also that opportunity of the storytelling and the sharing and creating a legacy through that storytelling. I love reading and I love books, and I also enjoy writing. So yeah, if you feel like having an extra pair of eyes, proofread, I'd love to have a look through it. Just for the fun of it. This week, a beautiful author, a man by the name of Eddie Jacku, who wrote the book The Happiest Man on Earth, passed away at over 100 years of age. And when I was looking back and when I read his book, I just thought it was such a beautiful story. But it reminded me of how lucky we are to have the opportunity to put things down in writing and to maintain that legacy, because it's always going to be there. That memory, that legacy, and that story is enduring forever. So yeah, it's wonderful to be able to engage in that process, and I'm really excited to read your book. I can't wait.
Oh, thank you. I'm always happy to send it out. My agent's always like, no, keep it tight. I was like, no, you just set it out in the world, and
Alan, I really feel like you, for me, you give greater depth and understanding of the two words presence and purpose, because I just feel like they are words that we hear a lot, but the way you describe the understanding of both of those words and what they mean and how we can engage in so many different aspects of our lives if we are on purpose and present in every single day of our lives. You just change the way I think about it, and I'm sure you change the way so many others think too. I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing what the 10 Days of Presence brings as well. It sounds like it's going to be a great program for many, many people. It's great chatting to you, and I love having you here on my podcast, and I hope that you'll also take that kind of chance to fly up here and be a speaker at some of our events, or one of our events to start with at some point in the near future. I'd love to invite you up to speak here. And before I end, there is one question that I love to ask all of the Wellness Warriors podcast guests. Alan, what does wellness mean to you?
So before I answer that, I'd just like to say thank you. Like, it's been lovely, and I love how it's just this lovely organic chat, and I've always loved our catching up on our talks, and so thank you, and thank you for doing the amazing work you're doing, putting out into the world as well. So yeah, thank you, and I can't wait to get in a plane at some point in time. I'd love to come up. But yeah, so wellness. So for me, wellness is around our state, our internal state, and really how, for me, the metaphor is how full our cup is. Because if we take the other side of wellness, which is when we empty our cup by always being busy, always being on, always giving out to the world, then what we're doing is we empty our cup teaspoon by teaspoon until eventually it's empty. And when it's empty, we're empty. And so that's when the doorway to whether it's stress or anxiety, physical illness, all these things open up for us. And so wellness and well-being for me is when we're able to fill our cup by doing the things that help us most, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, if that's your thing. And what happens then is when we build these practices into our days, each time it just puts another drop into the cup, to the point where our cup gets full and then it overflows out into the world. And so at a state of kind of optimum wellness, our cup is so full that we have more of ourselves. We're drawing from this infinite well of ourselves to give out to the world, to give out to our work, to our families, to our friends, to community, but also giving to ourselves at the same time.
Thank you. That was an absolutely beautiful explanation of what wellness means for you. I love that. And thank you once again for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely, lovely catching up.
Thank you for joining the Wellness Warriors podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you online with us. If you enjoyed the series, please leave your review, subscribe and follow, and we look forward to sharing many more stories with you in the future.